There we go.
Awesome. Thank you, Gabby. Okay. So, Ali, before we kick off, I'm just going to confirm what we're going to be doing today. Gabby sent me a little note here saying that we were going to cover bringing in mood boards, inspiration, first rounds of sketches. So anything 2D oriented, set up a vehicle package, one-to-one mannequin and correct proportions, and then start loosely sketching from the reference and the hand sketches to create like a few different iterations. Show how to get like some finer, nicer looking line work that kind of represents like a 2D sketch, and then organizing layers. Does that sound pretty dead on, or?
Yeah, that's exactly it, Emil. Thank you. Yeah, setting up a
Okay.
package and iterating from it, basically. Yep.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Okay, awesome. Just let me know when you guys are ready and we can kick off.
Yep. So far, so good. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Cool. All right. Great. Hey, everybody. Great to meet you. My name is Emil. I'm a senior product expert here at Gravity Sketch. I've got a bit of a background in automotive design, worked at Honda before Gravity Sketch, and I actually went to school with Alejandro in the automotive track at CCS. Today, we're going to run through a workflow. I'm going to be breezing past some of the basic functions of Gravity Sketch, just because those you could probably get answered in class, but we're really going to just focus on like an efficient workflow for ideating around a package. Bit about these demos. I'm going to be moving fairly quickly, but if you have any questions, do not hesitate to turn on your mic and just shout out the question, and I'll do my best to answer that question in real time with a demo. So don't be afraid to ask questions at any point in time during the demo. Great. So what you're going to be seeing is my view in VR. I'm going to project that through the screen here. And yeah, if there's any problems or you can't see something, just give me a shout and I'll do my best to fix it. Cool. So what we're going to do first is prep our workspace by bringing in some 2D images. So I'm going to share my screen first, and then we're going to go into VR. So let me just do that really quickly. I'll share the entire screen here. Right. And it is this one here. So you can do this with 2D images. So reference images from Pinterest, or you can scan your sketches or take your sketches from Photoshop or Illustrator and move all that 2D material into Gravity Sketch. It's pretty simple to do, and just so that you know what file formats you can actually bring into Gravity Sketch, you have JPEG files and then PNG files. And if you bring in a PNG file, it will respect the invisibility on that image and transfer that through into Gravity Sketch. And I'll show you an example of that once we're actually in the application. Cool. So I've selected this image right here. I've already downloaded it. And now what I need to do is bring that into Gravity Sketch. So the way that we do that is by using our cloud service called Landing Pad. So if you guys have used Gravity Sketch before, you will have had to set up a Landing Pad account. And I'm just going to cover a little bit about Landing Pad here first. So when you first open Landing Pad, what you'll notice is the organization here is on your own personal organization. So you can see here it says my first name and then workspace. That's my personal organization. You can also be a part of multiple other organizations. So for instance, everybody in this call is part of the UC DAP organization. That's your school organization. And then if you were to go on internship or get a job, you'd be a part of your company's organization as well. Essentially what that is it's just a repository for all of the work that you do for that company or that school. And the way you switch between these organizations is just by clicking up here, this name here, and then selecting a new organization. So this one's Academy of Art University, and then I can come back here and switch back to my personal organization as well. For the purposes of this demo, I'm just going to make it or just do everything on my own personal organization. But just keep in mind that if you're working with other students or with your professors, you are going to have to switch to your school organization. Otherwise, you won't be able to share your files or jump into a multiplayer room with anybody. So it all has to be done in the school organization. This window right here is a bunch of mixed things. It's got sketches, images, folders, basically all the data that saves to the cloud platform is going to be displayed here in the center. And what we want to do is start sorting between, these different types of files. So because we're bringing a 2D image in, we're going to click filter here on the left-hand side, and you can see we have sketches, reference images, import library. Import library is everything 3D oriented, so .objs or .fbxs. Screenshots that you take in the application, they'll appear here under this filter, and then exports. So any 3D exports that you make, they're going to appear here. Because we're bringing in reference images, we are going to click the reference images filter here, and you can start to see that it's actually segmented out everything that I've already imported, so a bunch of 2D images. And what we're going to do is pretty simple, just drag and drop this sketch into this main menu here. On the left-hand side here, in this little purple box, you get a little blue check mark. It's going to tell you if that's successfully imported or if it didn't. And then you can just exit that out, and we're ready to go into VR. This is already uploaded and shared with our VR headset. So yeah, I'm going to switch over the view now to VR, and we will carry on with our workflow. Stop sharing. Let's go to OBS camera view. Click F1 there. Okay, great. All right, hopefully you guys can still hear me. If not, just give me a shout. So when you first, perfect. When you first log into Gravity Sketch, this is what you'll see. This is your lobby. If you haven't logged in, it's going to look a little bit different. It's just going to ask for your email and your password, and then once you do provide that information, you'll see exactly this. You might have a different background, just an FYI. So on this bottom bar here, you're going to have your first and last name, and then your email that you used in order to make your landing pad account. And then on the left side here, you're going to have that organization as well. So again, if you're working with other students or within a school project, you'll probably want to click this and switch to your UC DAT account or your UC DAT organization. But otherwise, the rest of this is something that I think you guys could probably cover in class. But I'm going to kick off with the workflow here. So I'm going to use a single player sketch here. And so all I need to do is point at new sketch, click with the index finger, and I have started a new sketch room here. So I have X, Y, and Z in the space. I can navigate around. And right now it's just a blank room. So this white room really drives me crazy. So what we're going to do is change this environment. So to do that, we'll press the blue menu button and navigate down here to settings. And actually, just so this comes off a little bit more clear for you guys, let me change that and get rid of the Gravity Sketch logo. That should be a little bit better. Okay, so again, blue button, come down here to settings, and then there's a couple of different subfolders here. Now, 99% of the time, you're going to be doing all of your work within settings on this first menu here, this first submenu called Sketching Area. This is where you turn on Mirror Tool, Vertical Lock. You can bring yourself back to the origin, back to home. If you zoom really far out and don't know where you are, you can add a stage floor here. There's a bunch of awesome functions, and we're going to see those in action in a little bit. But to change the environment, we'll come over here to this third subfolder here called Workspace. Click on that, and we have some preset environments that we can choose from, so you can play around with those. Or we have custom environments. Now, there's 4 custom environments because you can come in here and click on each one of these, change it, and it will save those settings. So I'm just going to select on the first one here, and there's a few different things I can change here. So the first thing I want to do is turn on gradient. And then once you turn on gradient, you'll see down here, there's 3 extra options that pop up here. And if we highlight over them, it will say sky, horizon, and floor. So pretty self-explanatory. We can just select any of these, come in here and start changing the colors, and then that will auto-update in our space. You also have a flashlight on the right-hand side here. You can just grab this flashlight, point it in any direction, and it will change the directional lighting in the environment. And we'll see that in a little bit later. Great. So next thing we want to do is bring in our 2D image. So all we have to do is come down here to reference images. And because we uploaded this through the cloud and not directly to the headset like you would with like a jump drive, you will click this folder right here. So it says Emil's Workspace. That's the organization that I saved it to, and I saved it through the cloud, and it has a little cloud logo on it. So I'll point and click on that. And because I didn't place it in any folders, and I just dragged and dropped that image, I'll click through here until I see my image. Now, in order to bring this image out into the space, it's just like any object. You just highlight it with the grab sphere, hold the grab button, and you can hold that object. Same thing here. We just come through here, intersect this with the grab sphere, grab the image, and pull it out into the environment. Now it's kind of small right now, and also whenever I move around the environment, that image is not moving with the environment. It's not anchored to the environment. And so those are two things that we're going to want to change. So to anchor the image to the environment, you grab and hold it. And once you grab and hold it, you'll see that your blue menu button there turns into this anchor logo, or anchor icon, I should say. So you'll grab and hold the image, make sure you're holding it, and then press the blue menu button. And now whenever we move around the environment, that image anchors with us. This is really useful if we want to use our image as like a side view to start creating over. If we want to make the image bigger, it's just like with any object. You grab and hold it, and while you're holding it, you use the other middle finger button at the same time and bring your arms apart and towards each other like this, and that allows you to scale an object. Same exact thing with the image. We can grab this image and scale it up and down. I'm not going to place this image just yet because I don't have my wheelbase, so it would be incorrect for me to place it because I don't know what scale is correct right now. So instead, I'm just going to set this to the side here. And what we're going to do is provide a 3D chassis in the space here for us to start designing around. Now, this is really useful because it provides a proper base for you to start designing your car. So to do that, we are going to press the blue menu button. And we're not bringing in a 2D image, but we are bringing in a 3D object. So you'll click on the prefabs tab here, and you'll notice that you have this menu that appears. The important thing to remember about the prefabs tab is that this is split up into two different sections. Built-in models, this is everything that Gravity Sketch gives you by default in the program. It doesn't matter if you're connected to the internet or if you're running wirelessly or you're out in the woods with your headset or something, you'll always have access to these prefabs right here. And then there is import models. And import models is the section where you can access any 3D model that you bring into Gravity Sketch. And you bring those into Gravity Sketch the same exact way that we brought that 2D image in. You go to landing pad, you go under import library, and you drag and drop your file there, and then you'll have it accessible under this folder. As you can see here, I have some things that I've saved and I have some things that I've brought in. And I just wanted to show you that, import models is on the right and built-in models is on the left. Luckily, we are going to just use whatever's in built-in models here, and that is the rigged chassis up here. So it's this button right here. If you point and click on that, it's automatically going to change the panel on your left-hand controller, and we'll go over what's on this panel in a little bit. And it's going to populate a chassis in your environment. The cool thing about this chassis is it gives you a measurement readout, so we can see the measurement readout for the wheelbase, wheel trek, all those measurements. And then it gives you these blue arrows here that you can actually reach out physically, grab, hold, and very quickly adjust things like the tire height, or actually every single dimension on this chassis here. You also have that displayed here on your menu. Now, you don't need to use the menu. Like I just showed you before, you could just come in here and push and pull and just sort of get a feel for, what kind of a chassis you want. But if you're working to a specific brief on your internship or at work, or even, a sponsor that comes in and has a specific chassis that they size that they want you to use, what's nice is you can come in here and click on any of these numbers and, type in a dimension and then auto adjust it. So yeah, that's kind of useful. Excuse me, I've got a bit of a cough today, but that's really useful there. If you want to exit this edit mode, so this ability to adjust the chassis dimensions, all you have to do is press the blue check mark on your your left-hand controller. That will exit it and give you a chassis that you can start sketching around. This is not a 3D object that you can manipulate just by grabbing and holding it. It is locked. If you want to edit it again, you have to come back here, click on the chassis button, and then you can make your adjustments. So just keep that in mind, that this is here as reference for you to create around. And then if you want to adjust it, you have to click on that button. Okay, so we have our chassis and we have our 2D image. Let's match the two up together. I'm going to grab this image and I'm actually going to duplicate one out because we have a 3/4 view here and we have a side view over here. I want to use the side view to start sketching around, and I wanted the 3/4 to be out here as some reference for me. So I'm going to grab this image and just kind of like scale it up like this, And we're not going to be too precise right now because I'm just trying to get a sketch off, like a very quick ideation. But I'm going to place it, roughly right here. And, I will adjust the chassis accordingly. Actually, that's pretty good. We can just stick with that. But just to show you how you would do that, come in here, click on the button, grab this and pull it. If you want to, you can also push this up against the wall here so that you can see that it's directly over your sketch, and then pull that out to the right width. Again, we're just doing some ideation, so I'm going to be very loose with this, and we also don't have a package that we're really working around just yet. Okay, great. So we have our chassis, we have our image placed over top of the chassis, and we're ready to start using this as a sketch, except for we want to start making use of layers right now. Why do we want to make use of layers? Well, if we start sketching over top of this, and then I have a sketch line that I want to move, and I accidentally move the image, it can cause all sorts of problems. So just like any other 3D program or using Photoshop, you want to just be clean with the way that you're working. So we are going to leverage layers for that. To access layers, we'll press the blue menu button, and right below prefabs, you can kind of see how nicely this just goes right down the line whenever you're creating. You can click on this option here, layers. Now, automatically, if you drop a chassis in the space, the chassis is going to have its own layer with its own name. And by default, when you open up the program and you start a new sketch, you'll have one singular layer that anything you create is going to go on unless you create more layers. So that's what this first layer is here. Now, because I only have 2D images in the space, excuse me, and no sketch lines or any other geometry, I'm just going to run with this being my reference layer. So I'll click on the name, press clear, and type in ref or reference or anything that you want to name that layer. And then I'm going to lock it and turn down the visibility. I'm turning down the visibility because whenever I sketch, I'm going to have the mirror tool on, and I want to see the lines on the opposite side of the mirror plane. And I don't want to be, I don't want to be sketching like straight to a board. Great. So we got our reference layer, we got our chassis layer, we can lock that too. And then we can create a new layer here for our sketch lines. So we create a new layer, click on the name, type in loose sketch or whatever you want to name it, and then press the blue check mark, and now we have our sketch layer. Very important thing before we get started with sketching here. This magnifying glass right here identifies what layer is active while you're creating. So right now, because we created a new layer, it automatically goes to that new layer, our sketch layer, but you can change what layer is active just by clicking in this gray empty space right here on any of these layers. So I can click on this one, and it will give me a little warning saying, hey, that layer is locked. So again, it will give me that same warning that that layer is locked. I can still sketch and create. It's just going to be on a locked layer, so I can't exactly interact with it. Because we're trying to keep things nice and tidy, we'll just make sure that our sketching layer is the active layer, so all those sketch lines populate on that layer. All right, great. So now if we were to start sketching, I don't have the mirror tool turned on, and because we're sketching a car and it's symmetrical, we want that on. So to turn on mirror in Gravity Sketch, you press the blue menu button, and we're going to go back up to settings and onto that same subfolder menu, that I was speaking about before. So sketching in. Again, there's a ton of useful features here, and you're going to be on this menu quite a lot. So the first thing that I'm going to do is turn on mirror. And then the second thing I'm going to do is actually turn on stage floor here. Now, normally with certain projects, I would have stage floor off while I'm sketching in the beginning. But because this is a sports car and it rides really low to the ground, actually it really hugs the ground, I want to have the stage floor here as a reference while I'm sketching. Now, a few things about the stage floor. This is a reference object. You cannot adjust it, move it, change the color, grab it, anything. It only changes scale to match the size of the geometry that you have in the space. So as you expand, the floor will expand or contract to meet the size of the geometry. Now I have a 2D image all the way out here, and that's why it's expanded to meet the size of that 2D image. I personally don't like that right now, so I'm going to unlock my reference, delete that image, and then lock it again and turn on my stage flow again. Okay, great. So now we have the mirror tool on, and whenever we sketch symmetrically, it's gonna show that. But I don't want to start sketching in open space like this just yet. I kind of want to start with a side view. So if you used Gravity Sketch before and you just click the index finger and you start moving your arm around, this is very free-form sketching. You're sketching in X, Y, and Z all at the same time. Some people are really good with this, and it's a skill that you can sort of build over time. Other people really need, a side view to start working around, to just sort of ground themselves before they start sketching openly like this. Both techniques are really valid. It's just whatever's comfortable for you. So just to show you how you would sketch on a 2D plane, I'm going to press the purple tools menu, and by default we have the ink tool selected. That's perfect. That's what I love to do all my loose sketching with. It's a really great tool because it has this natural taper to the line and it kind of looks like an ink stroke anyways. But we want to change some parameters on it. So if you point and click on a tool one time, that will select the tool so that you can start creating with it. But if you click on this option twice, you'll get a menu that appears. And this menu has a bunch of different parameters that you can apply to that specific tool. So if I click through these different tools here, you can see how that menu changes. Those are all different options that apply to that individual tool. There's a ton of options here, and there's only one that we're going to use right now, and that is the planar function. So it's a toggle down here on the left-hand side, and if you toggle that to the right, you'll see this gray bounding box that appears right on top of the mirror plane. So let's turn this to the right, and the first thing you'll notice once you close the menu is that your stylus is no longer attached above your controller where it normally is. Instead, it's replaced with this red laser, and you can see the stylus is magnetically attached to that gray bounding box. That means that it's projecting on that 2D bounding box. So if I start sketching, you can see that's all landing on that 2D surface there. I'm going to show you how you can shift this 2D surface after we do our side view. But for right now, I'm going to zoom in here and just do a very loose side view. I'm going to be very gestural about this, and just kind of get down the proportion of this car. If you make a mistake, let's say you make a bad line or something, you just press the red back button once. That's the equivalent to Control Z in Gravity Sketch, and there's no history to it. There is history for all of it. So you can click that as many times as you want and go back a step. So I'm just going to do a quick side view here. Just conscious that there might be some questions so far. Does anybody, am I moving too quick, or is there any questions? It's okay if there's not. Just wanted to double check. If there is
no questions, Emil. Not yet.
There is, just shout them out. Okay, I don't need to go this in depth with like sketching the grill or anything, but only takes a couple of seconds. So, okay, cool. Let's actually just do this window graphic here. Indicate that for a second. Okay, good. So we have a side view now, and with this side view. Oh, actually, sorry. Before we move on with the side view, I just want to show you how you can change where this 2D plane is in the environment. You can adjust the 2D plane with the left pointer finger trigger. The right pointer finger trigger allows you to sketch and create. The left pointer finger, if you hold it in, allows you to place this image anywhere, or sorry, this 2D plane anywhere, and you can start sketching flatly on it. Now, I have this very randomly placed in the environment right now. You can kind of see how it's on an angle. That's what happens when you hold this button, this trigger in all the way. When you hold it in all the way, you very loosely move it like this. Very freely move it to any angle. And to perfectly snap it to X, Y, or Z in the environment, you do a half trigger hold. So it's light green, full green whenever it's all the way in, light green whenever it's half held. And you rotate your face of your controller to be parallel with the axes that you want to snap to. So you can kind of see how I'm doing this here. If I want to snap to green, parallel to green, and then in this line in the center of the plane highlights in that same color, that's how you know that that is perfectly locked to that axis. So just to show you where this could be useful, you can do a very quick fishbone model. So this is pretty standard in automotive design, is like a fishbone model. Some people do it on their sketches. Some people actually make 3D mock-ups. You can make clay models the same way, and it's really useful here as well because it's a cheap way of creating indications of surface. So we come in here and make a very quick fishbone model. That could be ugly like this. And yeah, it's just a very cheap and efficient way of like locking in proportion and showing what's happening with form without doing any surfacing at all. So I really like this technique. It's super fast. And you can even duplicate lines. I'll show you how to do this in a little bit, and delete some of them, and repurpose things. You don't always need to sketch something new. You can repurpose parts or sketch lines or anything. I also like doing that. It's super efficient.
Emil, that feeds into a question we had about adding tires. So maybe a little bit later we can touch on that.
Definitely.
Copying tires over with real geometry.
Yeah, for sure. So just to sort of before we actually cover that, it's a great question. And what we're going to do is actually this chassis here is useful for more than just something to sketch over top of. You can take this chassis and turn it into real geometry and start to build off of these tires. That's like I'd say a relatively new feature. And it's incredibly useful because you can go from your reference and actually turn it into your model as well. Okay, great. I'm going to delete away these section views right here. We're going to do them again in a little bit. And I'm also going to press the purple button and come back here to the ink tool and turn off planar. So we're done with planar for right now. And what I actually want to do is take this side view that I created and I want to duplicate it out along the x-axis and just use it to start honing in the proportion. And I just want to warn everybody that this is all going to be like fairly ugly in the beginning, and then we're through iteration, we're going to get this cleaner and cleaner and discover new designs and like really use the power of iteration in Gravity Sketch. Before I can take this and duplicate it out like I just did, we need to learn an extremely useful tool called Smart Move. So we're going to cover Smart Move just with some scrap geometry here. I'm also going to turn off this scaling so we don't see numbers popping up all the time. Okay, so if you create something, you create some geometry, and you want to move it in the space, you already know that you can highlight it, grab it, and start moving it freely in the environment like this. But let's say you want to move it along an axis precisely, or even duplicate something along an axis in a precise manner. For that, you're going to use a tool called Smart Move. Now, by default, this should already be on in your settings. If it's not, you can go to the blue menu button here, go under Sketching Aid, and turn on Smart Move. I highly suggest that you leave it on the middle section here where it says XYZ and not turn it to all directions. We'll kind of see why in a little bit. But if this option is off, just double check, turn it to the middle option here, and then you'll be able to use this feature. All right, so how do we use Smart Move? Well, we have X, Y, and Z in the space, and that is what we're going to be aligning our controllers to in order to move along X, Y, and Z. So the first thing you want to do is position yourself in front of your object, and then take your right-hand controller, your grab sphere, and intersect and highlight that object that you want to move. Now, you're not going to press the grab button, so you're not actually grabbing the object just yet. You're just intersecting it and highlighting it so that the program knows that is the object that they want to perform whatever function with. Once you've placed your hand on, once you've highlighted this object, you want to take your left-hand controller and slide it directly beneath your drawing hand or your right-hand controller. You want to make sure they're stacked up like this, so it should be kind of like directly on top of each other. And most importantly, you want to make sure that these controllers are parallel with the axes that you want to move along. So again, highlight, place your controller underneath, And once you've done this correctly, you'll get this little piece of UI that appears that lets you know that you've actually successfully done this. In this case, it's blue because we're moving along the Z-axis. If we were to rotate ourselves, place our controller parallel to X and place it beneath the right-hand controller here, it would highlight in red. So it's just an indicator to let you know what axis you're actually locked in on. So again, highlight, place it underneath, and once you get this UI that pops up, now you're good to hold the grab button and start moving this up and down or along whatever axis you want to move it along. Once you're holding the grab button, you can actually move your hands away like this, and it's just the right-hand controller that can controls the distance that you're moving it. But you do need to lock them, or you do need to stack them like this, just so that the computer knows, okay, that's the feature that you want to use. Cool. So I'm just going to show you how you do this. You can move it along whatever axis you want here. And what's most important is for comfortability is that you rotate the environment to match whatever angle you want to move along. I see a lot of people that jump into Gravity Sketch for the first time. They're like, I want to move it this way. And they're really struggling to like lock their arms in like this. If something's ever uncomfortable in Gravity Sketch, just rotate the environment so that it's more comfortable, like this. Okay, so once you're moving something along an axis, how do you do it? It's pretty simple. Once you're moving it like this, you just press the index finger every single time that you want to duplicate that object. All right, I know that was probably pretty quick, but this is recorded, so everybody will be able to go back and sort of like watch that feature there. And I'm also going to try it again here with the side view. So there's a bunch of different lines here that I need to move, so I need to grab them all at the same time. So I'm going to zoom out, change my position so I'm looking down on it, press up on excuse me, up on the joystick to make the grab sphere bigger, grab all the lines, hold it, duplicate it, and shift this out. So that I have 3 planes here explaining what the surface is doing. Now, because we're still trying to establish proportion and just like generally understand what the proportion is of our sketch, what you can do is grab these lines and shift them in and start to very roughly understand what the proportion of the sketch is. If you want to move multiple lines at the same time, you can group things in Gravity Sketch by selecting multiple objects, holding them, and pressing the purple button. Don't worry about moving them off axes. As soon as you apply an action, like pressing the purple button, they'll snap right back to their original location, so you don't have to worry about shifting them around. This is also hierarchical. Man, I really can't say that word. So I'm going to make a few here, and let me just change the color of them as well. Okay. So we can grab these first 2, group them. These 2, group them, so we can see that they're both groups. Grab both of them, group them. Now they're one group, and in order to break a group, you just hold that object again and press the purple button one more time. And so these 2 are still subgrouped, and if we grab them, press the purple button again, they'll ungroup individually. So that just to say that you can have groups stacked within each other. So I'm going to group this canopy here, or roughly what the canopy is, and just grab this and start shifting it around. Like rotate some of these lines in, pushing cool things. Again, I'm just trying to roughly understand proportion before I start doing some free sketching. Okay. Personally, I don't do automotive sketching like this. It's very rare that I make a side view and duplicate it out. I usually free sketch, but it's good to see multiple techniques for how to go about sketching something. I know a lot of people that like using the side view or the sketching a side view, so it's good to cover it. I don't need these center lines anymore, so I'm just going to come in here and delete these. They're not all that useful. Perfect. And now we have a much better idea of like what we're sketching here. So, excuse me. Now that we have this as a base, what we can do is start to get a little bit messy with this, and just going to make a black line again and start sketching over top of this. So, what I might do now is get rid of my side view. So I'll duplicate out a reference layer. create a new layer for my reference image that I want freely placed in the space, and turn down my side view all the way. That way I can have this guy sitting back here as I'm sketching over top of this one and sort of match it up. Everybody does, just like 2D sketching, everybody does develop their own sketching style. Even in Gravity Sketch, even though it's this 3D sketching program, you still do develop a style, just because it's all done by hand. So you'll see that I'm using a bunch of loose, kind of messy sketch lines. This is my sketch technique in real life too. It's very chaotic. So this is just kind of indicative of like my sketch style, but there's a lot of people that have a much cleaner sketch style, and kind of like very intentional sketching style in Gravity Sketch. So yeah, don't expect to have your sketches always look like somebody else's. Just explore with different styles and see what suits you. There's going to be a reflection there. Dips in and out. He's up here. Guess we have an intake in here somewhere. Also, I'm sure this has already been conveyed to you whenever you're learning Gravity Sketch, but spend a lot of time, if you can, getting comfortable with navigation. One thing you'll probably notice is that I'm constantly zooming in, I'm constantly zooming out, I'm changing my angle, the direction that I'm viewing this object all the time, and that is actually kind of the most useful thing about this program, is this ability to not only see something in front of you at 1-to-1 scale, but to see it at all scales. So you can, when you're designing a large object or even something small like a coffee maker or a hand tool, you're really viewing every single aspect of that design as you're designing it, which means you can make iterations incredibly quickly. So yeah, another thing I just want to encourage you to do is get very good with navigation, scale, moving around. Don't make yourself sick or anything, but just get comfortable with it. Okay, let's iterate on some tail lamps here. Maybe we shift some of these lines in, lift this up so that we can start having a splitter. We can even come back here and turn on planar again and like sketch out a splitter. We can group that together and duplicate it out a couple of times like this. We can shift some of these back. We can get kind of messy with this and scale them. Again, there's always a way to get tighter in Gravity Sketch. So the important thing is to get out the idea quickly and effectively, so that you can iterate on. Let's turn off planar. Exhaust is yeah, very loose with this. You can put in a lot of detail, but just make sure you're quick and gestural. Okay, so it's going to start to be useful for us to like come in here and start adding some fishbone section drawings. So we can start doing that in a little bit. Actually, now is probably a good time. This is really flat face. Also, I just want to mention that this definitely does take time learning how to sketch like spatially like this. So don't get discouraged if it takes you a while to get comfortable like laying down lines freely. I mean, you can see just right now how many mistakes I'm making as I'm sketching this out, and some of them are laying down a line incorrectly, and some of them are design mistakes. Like you're going to go back and change things constantly, and that's a good thing. Gabby, how are we doing on time?
Emil, we have about 45 minutes left on the schedule.
Okay, perfect. All right, so let's do a little bit of some section lines. So same exact thing as I was talking about before. Let's come in here, turn on planar, and then we are going to place that plane somewhere along the vehicle here. And oh, sorry, I should have mentioned this way earlier. Left and right on the joystick here, that allows you to change the size of your stylus. All the way to the left, you get these thin sketch lines. They're kind of like just very precise and nice looking. And then all the way to the right, you get these big toothpaste looking ones. As far as why my lines look like this, I have selected either the basic material or the flat material. That just means that you're not going to see the shading of this 3D object. It's going to appear flat, like it's a pen sketch or something. And then I also push all the way in on the color menu here till I have a deep black color. And then that allows me to just have this very like pen sketching look. Another thing I'd encourage you to do is under this ink tool here, you click on it twice. There's 3 different sketching, I guess you could say like sketching styles, or let's say sketching styles. There's taper, speed, and pressure. So taper just gives you a taper based on the distance of the line. You make a short line, it's still going to be tapered on the ends. Long line, same thing. Speed gives you a taper based on the speed of your sketch. So if you move really quickly, it's going to be thin. If you move slowly, it's going to be a fat line. And you can reverse this too, with thick to thin or thin to thick. So if I flip this to the right, now the slower I go, the thinner, faster I go, the thicker the line. So definitely play around with those. Especially this one is like very fun to sketch with. This one, if I'm completely honest, it's almost useless. It's pressure sensitive, and that's pressure of the controller. Now, if you're using an Oculus, and I assume almost all of you are, the trigger here isn't that great, like the distance of travel. So it's very difficult to like get nuance with your tapered lines. So yeah, all that to just say, play around with these different ones, and I'm going to start sketching the speed sketch here and see which one you like. One gives you an interesting style. I like this one because it kind of looks like a leading pen. All right, so that's an okay surface right now. Let's just jump here to the center of the vehicle and see what this looks like. Some of these lines out, and this is where everything converges. Nice stomach on the vehicle here. Kick out into the light catcher. It's probably too low of a light catcher, so press the back button, raise this up. All right, and then let's put one on the hips here as well. And again, you're always changing while you're sketching. You're always making iterations. So. Great. All right, so we kind of got an idea of like what we're doing here with this car so far. I'm going to turn off planar here and let's just scribble in some headlights, like the headlights on the original sketch. So we're just going to go with some classic lights up here. Maybe have it dip down. No, this is fine. And we don't need to go into details here. Also, sometimes I like to do a mix of clean sketching and messy sketching. So what I mean by that is like, I know that I want a character line here, and you could just make a very gestural line like this. Sometimes it's hard to get the right amount of gesture. So what I'll usually do is make a loose line like this. Let's just make this a different color and material so it's easier to see. Grab this, hold it, press the blue menu button. If you want to hide this enormous menu that pops up, you can press the purple button. While this is in edit mode, that minimizes it. And then I come in here and I delete away these points. And then hold these points and push them and pull them so that it makes the exact line that I want. Quick note on these points. If you want to add points, you point and click. And you can add as many as you want. You want to delete them, you delete them like any other object. You grab and hold them, press the red back button, and that deletes your point. So I'm going to push and pull this around a little bit. And if you want to change the taper or the size of any of these edit points, you hold it and go left and right on the joystick. The same way that you adjust the stylus size is the same way that you can adjust the size of these individual points. Just whenever it's in edit mode and whenever you're holding. So I'll taper this one as well. And I can get a nice clean line explaining what I want on this circle. Okay, this is looking okay right now, and we can move on to the iteration part of this. Sometimes I like to scribble in some highlights as well, like what the surface might be doing. This is nice to do with like an extremely thin line, and kind of indicates where a reflection might be doing in the highlight. Kind of did that down here with where the tail tucks in. Okay, still no questions? Just want to check. No.
So far, so good.
I think so far so good, right? Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
Sometimes I like to go through here and redo a side view. But I think it's okay to do it later, maybe. Okay, cool. Yeah, let's carry on here. I'm really sorry, but I gotta take a look at the notes. I'm a little bit, feel like I'm getting a little off track here. Vehicle mannequins, proportion. Oh, mannequins. Yeah, we can definitely do that. Loosely sketching. Okay, so not only is the car chassis here useful to start ideating over top of some of these center lines here, but you're designing a vehicle, you're designing a product, and that product needs to be properly packaged. It's extremely important, and one way that you can do this in kind of an intuitive way too, it doesn't need to be super strict or anything, is by using the mannequins in Gravity Sketch. Now, this already looks like a classically incorrectly packaged and proportioned vehicle sketch, so we're going to run into some pretty heavy issues here. But if you want to package things properly, you can come here to prefabs and then reach in and grab the mannequin and pull it out into the environment. Now, you'll notice if you just reach in and grab it and pull that mannequin and then do it again, they're at completely different scales. So they're not at a proper one-to-one scale, and that's a problem whenever you're packaging a vehicle or designing a product. You want it to be locked to the real world, and so if you're going to do that, this guy's got to be at the proper scale. So you can bring them in randomly like this, or you can bring them in properly at one-to-one scale and positioned on the mirror plane by grabbing and holding the mannequin. Now that's straight from the menu. That's not grabbing and holding it once you've dragged it out. So straight from the menu, and you'll see while you're holding it, there's this blue box on the right-hand side. You want to intersect this with the blue box. When it turns green, you can let go of the grab button, and that menu, that option, that box will change into a menu here. Now, if you can't see where your mannequin is or the object that you're importing, it's pretty simple to locate it. You just click this magnifying glass and it will zoom and place it directly in front of you. These arrows here allow you to change the direction of whatever you're importing. So I'm going to click the green arrow here 2 times, rotate the mannequin so he's facing this way, in front of the car, facing with the direction of the front of the car. And then right now, this is just a preview. You can't actually adjust it, grab it, move it, anything. It's not a real object, it's a preview. To turn it into a real object and actually import it into space, you'll press the blue check mark here. And now the menu goes away and you have a mannequin in your environment placed directly on the mirror plane. Now, one thing I want to show you with this mannequin first is that this is fully adjustable, it's fully editable. So you can grab this mannequin, hold it, press the blue menu button to place it into edit mode, just as you do with any other geometry, and you get these green points that appear. These green points are gestural. That means if you grab one point, it adjusts all the other joints that are connected to that object. To that point or that limb. To be totally frank, it doesn't work amazing on the legs. As you can see, that's not supposed to be able to happen. And but it does work very well on the arms and very well on the torso as well. Now, for the rest of those joint movements, you can flick the joystick left or right and cycle between these green points and these blue points. Now, you'll notice there's a lot more of these blue points. These blue points are positioned at every single bendable part of the body, and they just adjust that specific pivot point of the body. So you can design a car around a mannequin that you position in a gestural way for, let's say, human packaging, or you can design a hand product just by zooming in here and adjusting the knuckles. Maybe you can make this so that your mannequin is pointing at a touchscreen in the vehicle, or you can design a hand tool or a mouse or something like that. So yeah, that's how you adjust these mannequins. So what I'm going to do here is adjust this guy very quickly, switch to the blue points, rotate these legs up, bend the knees down, green points, position these arms very quickly by the wrist. You grab more than one point at the same time. Rotate this guy back and drop him using Smart Move into place in the vehicle. Okay, this actually isn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. We're filling this guy's sketch a little bit too quick. Okay, it is bad though. All right, cool. Then we can shift them over here and use Smart Move to duplicate another mannequin and back there. Great. So maybe this guy's the driver, right? So we can lift these arms up a little bit like this. And because it's at proper one-to-one scale, you can even start to come in here and sketch an interior. Now, we're not going to do an interior today, but you can kind of see how quickly you can indicate this stuff. And you can always get tighter again. It's just kind of fun to sketch interiors at one-to-one scale or close to it. Okay, so you can kind of see the power of sketching with mannequins as a base. I'm going to put that on a junk layer there so that we don't lose it, but we still have it. And turn that all the way down and up. See, I started sketching on the wrong layer here. All my sketch lines are on my second reference layer. Now you can fix this pretty easily just by scanning the grab sphere, grab whatever you want to move on to another layer. And while you're holding an object, you'll see these layers turn into blue boxes. Now, that just means that these are different bins. If you intersect these bins, they'll turn green. When one is green that you want to toss that object on, you just let go and it will automatically populate on that new layer. Now I'm going to continue to sketch, so I want the magnifying glass here, and I'll lock everything else. Okay. Yeah, let's carry on with this sketch here. So iteration. How do you iterate very quickly? I think it's Hunter Elmore. He's a past graduate from UC, and he's probably the best example of iteration that we could ever ask for in Gravity Sketch. He did a project of maybe Ali has this project to show you guys, but we did a human scale drone, so a drone that carries one person. And what he did was he started with a single sketch, and then he just kind of went through and duplicated this out over and over and over and over again. And people could jump in here and come in and leave notes, and that's actually what my handwriting looks like in real life. But yeah, they could leave notes, and then you could just duplicate it out, make adjustments, and then get more feedback and more notes. So this is a really useful technique. And what you can do is duplicate out your sketch and start working on alternate proposals. You can delete away the rear haunch here and start sketching a new one. Or you can just make simple notations over it, or you can, you can do really whatever you want as far as iteration goes. Now, you probably want your chassis wheels to come with you when you're duplicating this out. Now, you can always come in here and start to indicate, wheel or rim designs or whatever. But if you want to bring your chassis with you, you can, and I'll show you how to do that. Before we do that, though, I want to show you a very cool trick for sketching rims. This works on the ink tool, the stroke tool, and the volume tool. So let's go to the ink tool here, click this twice, and there's a bar at the bottom that says polar symmetry. Now, if you slide this up, it goes from 0 to 12. 0 means that it's off, 12 means that it rotates around that axis 12 times. You can kind of see it on that graphic up there above the menu. I'm just going to choose like a 6-spoke, and this works around an axis. So if I start scribbling here, kind of looks like a lot of chaos, but I can place the axes by pressing the the pointer finger button on the left-hand controller, just the same exact way as we place the plane, except for you get an axis as a piece of UI. So I can lock this to X. Let's make this black. And lock this to X and start sketching different rim designs and iterating on that. It's just really fun to do. Even if you're not going to move forward with that design, it's a great indicator. So that's what I'm going to do here. Let's sketch like a quick rim design like this. We can grab all those sketch lines and group them together, and also use the wrong lines. And also use Smart Move to shift this around and duplicate it back, and now we have a rear wheel as well. So it's a lot of fun to do, and it kind of matches the sketch style as well, which is nice. Yeah, so now we have this sketch that we can run with here. I do want to cover something that's not necessarily in the notes here, but like iteration on top of an existing sketch. So I'm going to delete this guy here. We're just going to stick with this one. Let's say we wanted to iterate on top of this sketch here. It's similar to an overlay, but you can just create yourself a new layer here. I don't know, maybe we name this sketch 2 or proposal 2 or whatever. By the way, you can move these layers just by grabbing them and shifting them up and down. It does not change the hierarchy, or the hierarchy doesn't change anything. It's not like Photoshop where you have a layer on top and then that's the dominant layer and you can mask with it and all that kind of stuff. This is just purely for sorting things out. Then you can lock your sketch underneath, lower the visibility here, and go to the second sketch, make that active, and start sketching a proposal on top of this. So maybe I don't want this body side here, but instead what I want to do is change the design so that this actually comes up and then opens back up for an intake. This is something like that. The intake is here, and the reflection goes back here. Okay. And maybe we do a little bit of scribbling here to indicate where the intake is. Okay, quick question for you, Ali. Did you want to move to Photoshop or show them how to take screenshots and move this to Photoshop, or is that for a later lesson?
Yeah, can you hear me okay? First of all?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, yeah, I mean, the priority would be, so doing underlays so they can go back and forth. So an early thumbnail sketch that they did by hand, bringing that as you're showing us into Gravity Sketch, then taking screenshots without a background in here. And those are the underlays for sketching in Photoshop, and then go back. So it's kind of that back and forth for a couple weeks.
Gotcha. Okay, perfect. So I'm just gonna, sorry, Gabby, how much more time do we have?
Emil, we have a little less than a half an hour right now.
Oh, okay, perfect. Okay. So I'm going to spend a little time here and work on this design and just an iteration here, kind of try and make this sketch a little more like attractive in like the traditional automotive sketching way. And then we can show how to take that and move it into Photoshop. So to take screenshots and then move this into a traditional 2D program. So, okay. And you don't need to resketch everything either. You can pick and choose what you want. Like a single line here, and I just want very clean center line, something that's not very not left up to interpretation. It's a very clear idea of what the center line is doing. Again, you can also duplicate lines, and like you don't always need to start from scratch. Shift it back. Let's actually duplicate that out here. And oh yeah, once you create something with planar, let's say you want to move this in any other axis. You'll notice if you grab this point and you're trying shifting it in X, it's not going to move in X. That's because planar is still being like respected on this layer, or sorry, on this object. But because you have it in edit mode, you can turn off planar just for that specific shape. And now use smart move and scooch these lines in a little bit like this and shape them. Okay, so those are enough lines, I think, to like sort of get a better concept here. So I'm going to lock the new stuff that I made and then turn up the, actually, here's what I'd like to do to sort things out. I will take the new stuff that I made and make this a bright color, lock it, turn up the sketch for the other one, unlock that, and now I can delete away all the stuff that I don't want from that original sketch. So the center lines and the alternative body side and these A-pillars. Great. Now I can turn up or turn off the lock for the other sketch, grab everything and change it to be all the same flat black color here. Okay. So that's looking pretty decent. Let's say we want to move this into Photoshop. So we want to do that classic kind of like back and forth that Ali was talking about a minute ago. So to do that, we would, so this is better than the original one. Okay, to do that, if we were to just take a screenshot of this right now, we see all the lines on the opposite side of the sketch, and it's really just not that beneficial because it kind of looks like a jumbled mess. Let me turn off planar here. So there is a technique to do this in a better way. It's called hidden line trick. And essentially what we're going to do is fill the interior of this sketch with a bunch of junk geometry. Change the material and the color of that geometry to be invisible, and then take our screenshots, and it will hide all the lines on the other side of the mirror plane. So to do this, first off, let's just grab all of our sketch and put it on a single sketch layer, and then I can delete sketch 2. We don't need that anymore. We will create a new layer here, click on the name and call this filler or volume, or anything that you want to describe what scrap geometry is going to be in the center of it. Okay, so once you've done that, what you can do is then lock your sketch layer. We want to make sure that that stays there as reference and we're not bumping and moving that around. And then on this empty layer, the filler layer, we're going to press the purple button and switch our tools. So we're going to go from the ink tool to the volume tool. Now the volume tool operates on the same principles as the ink tool. The only difference is whenever you're sketching this line, it connects a volume between the line while you're sketching. So it gives you these really great volumetric shapes that are useful for a lot of different things. But in the case of automotive here, they're going to be useful for coming in here and sketching in this volumetric scrap geometry to hide the other side of the lines. Now, I like to choose a bright color here and something that's not flat so that I know exactly where these shapes are. You can use as many of these shapes as you want. You can be as loose and kind of messy as you want with these shapes. The only objective here is to not intersect the sketch lines like this or go past them. As soon as you do that, whenever we make this invisible, it's going to hide those sketch lines, and that's exactly what we're trying to avoid. We want to showcase just the sketch lines and get rid of everything else. So yeah, you can take a few minutes, or you can spend a lot of time, well, not a lot of time, but a little bit more time, making these shapes in this space here. Whatever you need to do to fill in this the center area. Also, on a totally different note, but along the lines of idea exploration and iteration, this is a fantastic form generator as well. So there are some, especially automotive designers, that will kind of come in here and start with some random shapes like this and just see where this goes. Like, can you make a Jeep out of this? Can you make an off-roader or something? And then use this as a base to start sketching around. Just a creative way of doing form exploration and then letting that guide your sketch. And then of course you can always change it in the sketch and flesh out the idea further. Be prepared also to press the back button a bunch or shift things around or delete geometry. It's a pretty messy process. Be a little less intentional here. Starting this up. Last couple of shapes here. Okay, cool. So that's probably good enough to get the point across here. So because we segmented this out on its own layer, what we can do now is expand the grab sphere by pressing up on the joystick, grab all of this together, press the purple button so that it's grouped together. You don't have to do that, but it makes it easier to change the material color and stuff like that. Then we are going to grab this again, hold it, and we're going to change the color and material. So you have to be holding it first. Then you can press the color menu button here. Let's make this pull out on the wheel here and make this a bright white. And then grab it again, hold it again, and we'll change the material. Now the materials are floating above here, and we want to choose a flat white material. We don't want to see any of the shading or the any of the information of the shapes that we put underneath the sketch. We just want to focus on the sketch. Okay, great. So we have that there. And now what we can do is come in here to settings, turn off the stage floor, come up here to the workspace tab and turn off the gradient. We want a single color for the background and then turn this background to flat white as well. Again, that's pulling out and just trying to get it to the center. It will magnetically attach to the center there. And now whenever we look at this, it appears as a 2D sketch, which is kind of nice. Now that's pretty cool for inside Gravity Sketch, but it's going to be useful for our 2D screenshots as well. So this is how you populate a sketchboard within a couple of minutes. You can rotate your wrist in like this, click on the screenshot button, and then you have your left hand is replaced with this panel, and it's the screenshot function. Now, if you don't see all these options, it's because you haven't pressed the purple button or click this gear icon here. They do the same thing. Purple button and the gear icon both give more options for you to take screenshots with. This slider on the left is the field of view, it's self-explanatory. And then you have options here on the right. Instant photo means that if you press the screenshot button here, it will save a photo and leave it in your environment. Now, this is useful in some cases, but most of the time you want to have that off. Transparent background will get rid of the entire background and just save out the objects in the space. This is exactly what we're going to use for Photoshop because we don't want to erase away a bunch of stuff. We just want the PNG of the geometry. Show UI allows your UI to become part of the picture. And vertical lock makes sure that this screenshot menu is always locked vertically in the environment, even if I rotate my wrist like this. Personally, I like to have vertical lock off because you want to get these kind of funky angles for automotive design. So let's take a couple of screenshots here. You have to be careful of what's in the background there. That will appear in your environment. So you can turn down your layers to avoid that. Okay, I'm just going to do a few screenshots here. We're not going to go too crazy, and then we'll move to Photoshop. Okay, great. So we got our screenshots. Press the blue menu button again to get rid of that. And another thing I want to show you is if you have the environment changed to this material and you have the filler material in as well, it is also useful to create a new sketch layer, lock both the original and the filler material, and then just come in here and add some more sketch lines on top. It provides a really nice base. You know that you have proper proportion, and you can come in here and start adding, more detail to your sketch. So you can start sketching like the greenhouse and stuff. Okay. All right, I'm just ruining this even more. Okay, cool. So once you do this, we can press save and export. You can save your sketch if you want, or you can just exit to the lobby. And I'm going to show you where you can grab these sketches from. You probably already guessed where. It's landing pad. All right, let's do a share screen. Is that one? Oh, there we go. Share screen, entire screen, share. Can everybody see this?
Yep, yeah, we can see it.
Okay, fantastic. So we'll come back here to landing pad. Let's just refresh this so that everything updates properly. All your screenshots are going to go directly to landing pad to the organization that you were working in. So we were working in my personal organization. We took some screenshots. We can come down here to filter and then go to screenshots. And I'm really sorry about this. It's incredibly annoying about the way we built the program and it needs to be changed, but you do have to click on update here. Otherwise it's going to sort by name. Don't know why, not very useful. But I have probably too many screenshots, so it's going to take a while to load this in. And in the meantime, I'm going to kill Gravity Sketch and open up Photoshop just to save a little bit of time here.
Kill us, no.
Okay. It's taking more time than I thought.
Emil, in the meantime, while it loads, I just wanted to mention one of the really awesome demos I saw recently of sketch rendering style in Gravity Sketch. I'll probably find that video and show it to them. It's really, really cool. I think it's somebody who recently has been working with you guys and perfected like a sketch rendering style. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do. So that's Eric Stoddard. He's a veteran designer. He worked at Chrysler, Ford, I think Icona, or sorry, Hyundai. And he recently joined Gravity Sketch within like the last year. And what he wanted to do, just for a little bit of context on it, is take the traditional sketching look that you have in Photoshop and bring that over into VR sketching. Because obviously there's the power of iteration, there's the power of speed, of understanding your proportion, but you still want to have that sort of like sexy sketch at the end of the day. So that's the video that Ali will be sharing with you guys. It's a really cool technique. It takes a little bit more time, but it is extremely cool. Okay, cool. So here we go. In the menu now, we see the couple of screenshots that I've taken. We have the most recent car sketch screenshots that I took. And if you double click on this, it will let you view that screenshot. You can then press the X. If you click it once, let's click this one. If you click it once, you can move this to a different file. You can rename it. You can delete it. You can view it just like we just did. Download it or send it via email to somebody. I'm going to download this. And then I'm also going to shift select and download these 3 other sketches here and show you the difference between shift selecting and then just downloading one image. Okay, cool. So let's go to, excuse me, downloads. Here's the 2 individual images that I downloaded. And if you shift select, you get a zipped file. So you just left click this, extract all, and then you can have your sketches in an individual folder. Once you have this, it's pretty simple. You just drag and drop this over into Photoshop. Let's go back to downloads for these other ones here. Drag and drop these guys as well. Come on. Drop these. And we have all our sketches here with us. Which one's better? Bottom one. Okay, so now we have them all here in Photoshop with us. They're all saved as a PNG. You can kind of see that if I turn off the background here. So it's just that image. The annoying thing is that this comes over with the Gravity Sketch logo in each of these screenshots. So one thing you would want to do in the beginning is Control-Shift, select all of your sketches, right-click, and then rasterize the layers. That makes sure that means that you can, come in here and start editing them. Just come in here to your eraser tool and erase away the Gravity Sketch logo on each of these sketches. Apologies for that. I know it's really annoying. Delete this one. I don't need this sketch, whatever. Okay, then you can take these and grab them all, turn them on to multiply. They kind of look like a mess. Give yourself a background. Grab your sketches and start populating a sketchboard in just a couple of minutes. Then it's just like, regular Photoshop here. So you can position your sketches any way that you want. And then let's make this one smaller. And then because it's on multiply, you can start adding some values to your sketches here. So let's shift these guys down, make this one, move this up a bit. And yeah, it's probably not the best way to set this up, but we can go on to the bottom layer now, grab a soft brush or a gradient or whatever you want. Add that in the space and start sketching on top of that. I'm just working with a mouse today, so apologies for a terrible Photoshop demo. Cool. So yeah, that's how you can go back and forth into Gravity Sketch, and of course, because this is a 2D image now, you can take this and save it out and then bring it into Gravity Sketch the same way that we did with our reference images. So that's kind of that back and forth. Create a 2D sketch, create a 3D model, go back and forth, making iterations, and yeah. Is there any questions on any of this?
Any questions, anybody? Mo, I think this has been really, really awesome. Thank you. This is really great.
No problem. No problem. Yeah, thanks for having us, guys. And I'm just going to close out of this file here and stop sharing.
I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording then if there's no questions.